Okay. Happy Sunday, everyone. If you're listening to this live, um, I'm not normally on now, but going forward, I'm probably going to do some more of these. Um, but, well, let me bring up my notes here. I've got this outline to make sure that I stay on track. It's been a long week and a longer weekend. And so I'll explain some of this as we go. But anyway, welcome. So let me just start by saying that tonight's live isn't for everyone. And I know that'll make more people watch, but that's not a reverse psychology thing. You'll see. All right. So it's not about technique. It's not a tutorial, right? It's not an extra Kuden episode, right? Uh, this is a conversation for serious practitioners or those who want to be, right? So I want to talk about something that's come up recently, both from a personal revelation, and I can't say it's been the first time, but it's resurfaced again, right? And it's also from the words of one of my teachers that hit me, you know, proverbially, right, between the eyes. Um, so, why do most people quit too soon? Right? And what separates those who just dabble from the ones who actually transform? I don't mean they learn a lot, right? I mean they become different people. Right? Talk about this. I'm actually going to go live again tomorrow morning. I've got a bunch of things that I want to talk about, but I'm going to keep these short. Okay. So we're talking 30, 45 minutes. So not a 2-3 hour Kuden. All right. But here's the thing. Some of you may have caught this. I've got a bunch of students that keep coming and saying, "Hey, and you see this interview?" So one of my teachers, not so recently, closed his school, um, and there's a whole story behind why he did it at that point. But that didn't stop him from continuing to teach, training groups, seminars, those kind of things, right? But if you caught the interview, it was with Shiroshi Bud Malmstrom. And he was one of my students, or one of my teachers. Um, and he has been someone who's been very influential in my training and my progress almost from the very beginning. I say almost because I chose Stephen Hayes as my first teacher, but they were all connected, right? Him and Jack Hoban, and so, um, but I've had a real connection with Shiroshi Malmstrom, and in fact, he was the one that when I started hosting seminars, right? Because I couldn't. There were lots of life conditions. I was in the military and all that, and I couldn't get away. I was living halfway around the world. I couldn't get to these things. So I made a phone call, right? What would it take? And I worked it out. I figured it out, right? Did it go swimmingly and smoothly from the very beginning? No. Okay. But I figured out a way to make it work. And so I hosted seminars with him. And then when there was a major turning point in my training career with Sensei Hayes, um, another phone call. Right. And so we've had a lot of deep uh, teacher student, not just a relationship, but conversations over the years. So when I caught the interview, um, when he admitted that he was tired of repeating basics for people, especially those who weren't truly engaged, right? Just teaching the same techniques over and over and over again to different faces, right? And it's not that people don't come and people go, and I mean that's a part of this, right? Why do they go? But the same mistakes, the same corrections, often to the same people, right? Well, it's a teacher's job, Sensei. Hmm. maybe that's what we've accepted it to be, right? In today's world, we accept a lot of things to be, well, this is the new normal. Yeah, okay. I've got a few choice words for the new normal. Okay. Just because you make it the new normal doesn't mean it produces the same results. Okay. But anyway, I digress. As a matter of fact, coincidentally, I was just speaking with my black belts and whatnot that we have to have a meeting to reevaluate the curriculum. We often, well, not often, but I mean, every couple of years we'll reevaluate things based on how students are doing and whatnot. And we tried backing things down. We tried moving things farther down the line because students just weren't getting it. And then we realized I'm not going to use the term watered things down, but when we shifted things to make it easier on students, guess what happened? Yeah, most students were performing at an even lower level. So we're talking about putting things back where they belong, and just words from Hatsumi Sensei from years ago, decades ago, resonated in my ears. Right. Ultimately, when it comes to people training, people learning, and whatnot, teach pretty much whatever I want because when it comes to people getting it, when it comes to people doing the work, right? Some will, some won't, and so what? And I have to divest myself from other people's outcomes because my job starts and ends with teaching correctly and providing the lessons, not doing the work, not chasing people down to make sure that they're doing what they said that they came in to do. And anyway, based on this interview, it was pretty much the gist of it, right? So he just stopped, right? And the reason he stopped was so that he could focus on his own development, right? I think a lot of students or a lot of people just assume that the teacher already has it. And so therefore, right? And then they'll stop at a certain point when they think they have it. But anybody that's like really serious about moving along, I'm not worried about students being better than me, stealing things, whatever, because if I'm always working and I'm always progressing. But there's the crux. By spending a lot of time chasing the maybes and the wannabes and the people who have what I sometimes call a martial arts seizure, right? That means there's like a little hiccup, right? That'd be cool to do. That'd be great, right? Be cool to have that, right? Be cool to be a black belt. No, not really. But anyway, it takes a lot of time away from the teacher's advancement. And it can actually not only stifle it, slow it down, but it can also reverse it. I'm warning the black belts all the time. You have to be careful that all of the redundancy that we do when we're teaching lower level classes, the same techniques, the same ways, these things are loaded with training wheels. You have to be careful that you're not confusing class time with training time. Class time, you're training, you're teaching other people, right? It's present to past oriented. Okay. But your own training time, your own learning time, your own development time is is present to future based. I'm working now to be better in the future. And anybody that confuses the two, they're working on their own stuff during when they should be focusing on students. That's one of the reasons why they don't have a whole lot of students, because the students feel lost, right? And those who spend more time focusing on the students and not on their own, well, then things get siphoned. Okay. So anyway, what he discussed during the interview, right, for those of you who didn't catch it, right, was that once he stopped, he gained like 10 years of personal progress in like 2 years. Okay. And it hit me, right? As teachers, we can only take people so far when they're not actually walking the path, right? If this is seen as a replacement for pick a hobby, pick a recreation, right? Today it's martial arts. Tomorrow it's underwater basket weaving, whatever. Right? Um, we can only take somebody so far, right? And when we keep chasing those who won't commit, we sacrifice our own growth and the potential of those who are ready. Okay? And that's where I've been for a while, and why I'm shifting focus. Right? I am no longer chasing the wannabes. Okay? And this comes around every once in a while, and I haven't mentioned this or irritation or whatever with this kind of paradigm or this situation in quite a while. A couple of years ago, I think it was right around New Year's, where I sent out a step up or get out kind of email. Didn't say that, but what it said was I created a whole different subscriber list in my email software and said, look, I pay for every person whose name is on this list every month. Okay. I know it's a free newsletter on that side, but on this side, it's not. I pay for everyone, and I pay for every time that name or that email is on one of my sub lists for some specific type of training or information or whatever that the person is interested in. Okay. And not only do I not want to be wasting my time sending things out to people who don't take any action on it training wise, let alone open the damn email, right? But I certainly don't want to be freaking paying for them. So, to be quite blunt, right? And so every once in a while, I, would set up a new email list and say, look, here's the deal, right? If you want to stay on the list, if you want to keep receiving information, then fill out your information here, click on this thing. And what it does is it puts them on a new list, removes them from the old one. And I'm very clear about it, right? In 3 days, this list is being deleted. So if you don't open things, if you're missing the messages, if you don't want to be on it anyway, but you don't want to hit the unsubscribe button below because I don't know, you're afraid I'm going to be upset or whatever. Well, you won't have to worry about doing any of those things because I'll take care of it for you. Right. And so I'm not there. This is not I'm going to start a new list. And, if you want to be on it, great. If you see, that's chasing. And why the hell would the teacher be chasing? Right. So anyway, like I said, I've got several conversations to come along. Anyway, so I'll open things up and I'll look at the chat here in a minute, but I'm just kind of sticking to my outline so I don't miss anything here. Let's talk about something here for a moment that a lot of us talk about. When I say a lot of us, I mean like my black belts and my close knit students, regardless of their rank. They could be in mod 1, they could be in mod 2, they could be, 6 dons, whatever, right? But it's this good enough culture, right? I'll give you an example of what that looks like. I had a student not too long ago, right? Came in really worried about self-defense, really worried about like where the world was going and, even our community, right? And I certainly don't live in a big city. And he made either his yellow belt or his yellow black belt. So that's like the second belt in. Yellow black is like the second belt in. It's the third progress step in our mod 1. So if we were to equate that to grade school, that would have put him in first grade. Okay, comparatively speaking. Okay. But they decided to quit. And I said, why are you quitting? And he said, well, I feel confident that I could defend myself. Right. I think I've learned enough that, I mean, not against a killer or whatever, but most situations, I think I can handle it now. I'm pretty sure my eyes did what they just did, but because I have almond shaped, almost Asian eyes, it's really difficult for me to get my eyes to open as big as I think that I'm opening them. But wow. Okay. Others have hit a milestone. Uh, they've attained a certain belt level like this guy, but I'm talking like black belts. Okay. Personal hit first degree black belt. And because we have this cultural belief that a first degree black belt is some kind of like, super killer, superhero, master, whatever. People set out with the goal to earn their black belt. So they do, which is pretty good, right? Because most people who've ever wanted to take martial arts still haven't taken action on it, right? I think the average time, and we track this stuff all the time when we have somebody contact us, right? How long have you been thinking about taking martial arts? The average is about a year before they ever like took action on it. But across the industry, right, there's a bunch of martial arts organizations that try to keep track of this. Now, not all schools, report their statistics or anything like that, but some of these big organizations, their best guess is that only about 1% of people who get involved in martial arts actually stick around long enough to earn their white belt. I'm sorry, their black belt, first degree black belt. Okay. That's 1 in 100. Okay. Holy shit. I actually think it's like worse than that. Okay. Because the biggest drop off is within the first 100 days. And after that, the secondary drop off is between 4 and 11 months. Ask me how I know. Yeah, I track statistics. Okay. And then after that, people who make their black belt, their first degree black belt, it ranges, right? The average is, or not the average, the high end is somewhere between 10 to 15% continue on to at least their second degree or further. But there's some organizations that they said it's somewhere between 5 and 8% that actually continue on after that, because people got stuck on I attained my goal, so I will be able to handle myself for the rest of my life. Okay. Again, just to put this in perspective, right? That's like the first guy is like a kindergartner quitting school. And if you understand what Shodan really means, right, the way it translates using the kanji, right? Often it's translated as head of class, but we have to be careful because in the West here, head of class means that somebody's like a senior in the class. That's not what it means. Okay. In traditional classrooms, including Japanese classrooms, the newest students are put up front at the head of the class, closest to the teacher, because they need to get the most help. And as someone learns more and advances and doesn't need as much help, they get moved closer to the back of the classroom, right? Very different from most Western schools. If your classes were anything like mine, and I haven't been in school in quite a while, it was all the kids that wanted to be stupid or screw around that as soon as they came in, they chose desks in the back of the classroom so that they could hide from the teacher or buck around or whatever they were doing, because they really didn't want to be there. I get it, right? But what it means is you've filled your toolbox with the basics and the skills and things like that, and now it's time to go to work. Otherwise, there wouldn't be 10 levels in the black belt ranges, right? Not even counting our system, and there's several other systems that have these what I call beyond mastery levels. All right, but again, this would be like somebody quitting school. Junior high, maybe the beginning of high school, thinking that they were ready for college or ready for some high-end genius think tank. Okay. Anyway, so martial arts, right? Real martial arts, what Hatsumi Sensei has always called real Budo. It's not about finishing. And I know people talk about this all the time. This is going to sound like a cliche. I know, because everybody uses the words. Everybody shares the memes. Everybody, passes around the quotes. That doesn't mean that they live it. It doesn't even mean that they think it's anything more than cool. And we know that because if we meet them and we see how they walk, talk, live, whatever, it doesn't match up, right? This is a lifetime path of self-leadership, self-discipline, and skill through adversity. Okay? I've been talking about that here recently. As a matter of fact, I think this past week's Kuden, I brought up some things from Hatsumi Sensei's book, Ninpo, Wisdom for Life, but it's scattered across all of his things, right? So this kind of begets the question, right? Which is the whole point of this little conversation, which is why most people quit. Right? And everybody has their own things, and everybody has reasons that they give. Okay. What I wanted to do is pare this down to what I think, right? Again, this is my humble opinion based on over 40 years of training in the martial arts. I started training the martial arts in 1975. And over 30, give or take, almost 35 years of teaching and watching people come, watching people go, right? So we'll just pare it down to three, right? One is they confuse activity with transformation. What that means? They go to class, they're doing things, or they're working out, right? They do their daily practice, right? But it's the same stuff. It's their favorite stuff. It's the stuff they're already good at, whatever. Okay. Later on, I'm just getting ready to post an article about how people end up staying in a cycle of being a white belt again and again and again. That doesn't mean that they don't get rank, and it doesn't mean that they don't get rank in like multiple martial arts. But there's this interesting psychology that goes on that prevents a lot of people from entering levels of mastery where mastery isn't just, I know a bunch of techniques from a bunch of different systems. It's not a collector's kind of thing, right? So again, I'll save that one for another conversation, right? But just because we're working out doesn't mean we're changing, doesn't mean we're progressing, doesn't mean we're advancing. Right? Hitting the heavy bag every day, practicing our rolling, practicing our kamae, doesn't mean that we're gaining extra insights, right? Hatsumi Sensei, there's a whole list. I passed it out a while ago. There's this whole list of things that we should be doing on a regular basis, if not daily, like the Sanshi no Kata, right? People end up stopping. I mean, think about the things that we quit doing. Why did we quit doing it? Well, because we figured we had it. Okay. Well, what made us think that we had it? Well, nothing was changing. Same shit, different day. Same techniques, different day. Same techniques, same way. But any technique, let's say I give a student a technique at white belt. If he's halfway to black belt and he's still doing the same technique the same way as he did as a white belt, when he had what? No level of understanding, right? Less coordination, less flexibility, right? He didn't know to look for certain things. There were less principles and concepts that he was attached to. But now somebody's halfway to black belt, and they have learned more principles about timing, distancing, angling, flow, those kind of things, right? They are watching for different things, right? And they're still doing the same technique the same way, and they're not teaching a class to white belts. no transformation, because that technique shouldn't be done the same way by that person any more than it should be done the same way by that person when they're at second dan or an eighth dan or whatever, right? So the question is, what does any given technique look like? Anyway, right? So second reason is they want motivation, not discipline. I know this because I have more than enough people telling me that they really need me to help motivate them. How about if you just do the work? You may find that in and of itself motivates you to do more work. Right? But we live in this realm or this era or this, maybe it's just all times. I just happen to live in this one, right? That people wait to be motivated before they get off their ass. But that's not true. Okay. Maybe it's the motivation that they're having, right, that puts them on their ass. It's the end of a hard day. I just want to sit down and do nothing else. Well, that's your fucking motivation, right? We do what we are motivated to do, but the human mind, and this is a core principle in Nikyo, like way up front before you even get any of the other juicy lessons, right? Ego, the average human being, will not do anything unless there is a promise of a reward or a threat of punishment. And they will always gravitate toward the pleasant before having to do things that are unpleasant. But martial arts is about challenges. It's about being able to overcome challenges. And how else do you learn how to do that unless you're facing challenges? Anyway, that's a different conversation, right? And the third reason is they want quick results without an identity change. Okay? Like I've already expressed my opinion about people who tell me that certain things are old ideas or that's not the new norm or whatever, but they can't move forward. Okay? Well, they can't move forward because they're waiting for motivation. And they don't want to do hard stuff. But what people tend to do is they tend to dream about or fantasize about being them with new abilities, with new skills, with new wisdom. What you with those things is not you. It's a different you. That's a whole different identity, right? But people want quick results without the change, without the hard work. So when any one of these three things doesn't work or doesn't provide continuing fulfillment, they quit. Okay? The activity leads to boredom because there is no change or difference. Right? If we're waiting for motivation, then there's going to be huge lulls in training. Right? The discipline is what gets us through doing things when we don't want to be doing them. Okay? And they want quick results. So when they don't happen fast enough, or they're required to change something about the way they think, the way they speak, the way they plan, the way they act. I ain't got time for that shit. Okay. I don't know. One of the jokes I've had for years is if I could figure out how to set up a drive-through window system, I think I'd make more money. I'd have more quote unquote students because I could just pull up to window number 1, order technique 26, pay whatever technique 26 calls for, pull up to window number 2. And like, I would want to like deliver the technique and then give them the video, but I'd make more money if they just pull up to window number 2 and I could just hand them the damn video. Maybe I'd demonstrate it once for them and then hand them the video. I'd make a whole lot more money. So the long and short of this is that this path isn't for the quick fix crowd. It's not. Okay. It's for the few who understand that growth comes from repetition, discomfort, reflection, and showing up even when you don't feel like it. Right? Just not feeling it. Who gives a shit? So if that was what lulled me around, I wouldn't be here having this conversation that people wouldn't like. Right. And I'm sure a bunch of people who've signed on to listen to it have already clicked away. Right? And if what I've set up to this point has caused that to happen, please hold on to the bar, as they would say at the amusement park. Because now I want to say something that might sting a bit more. And if it does, that's probably a sign that it needs to be heard. That's another big thing I learned from Sensei Malmstrom and Hatsumi Sensei. What I found very interesting about Hatsumi Sensei, everybody sees him as this wind kind of character, where he's just nodding and telling everybody's right and promoting people to higher levels or whatever. Yeah, no, there's another side to that, because over the years, I and several of my peers have watched him smile and placate and even pat some of these guys on the head that just want to suck up and whatever. Their taijutsu looks like shit and then there's others of us that, even if accidentally or unintentionally we come across a certain way that leans into that direction, he'll give us an answer, or he'll smile, or he'll do whatever, and then it'll all go away, and he'll look at you straight in the eye and just go, okay, you happy now? You feel better? And then he'll walk away. He doesn't treat all students the same way. For the record, most teachers don't treat all students the same way. They should meet them where they are. And the students' actions set the level. Okay. And any instructor, teacher that does treat everybody the same way is just that. They're either an instructor where they are conveying data. They're not really paying attention to the students. This is the only way it gets taught, period. Right? Or they're afraid of conflict. And so they're going to tell everybody what they want to hear. They're going to be nice. They don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. It's not the same. Okay? Which is why I teach my instructor candidates who are going through our instructor training program that there are different types of instructors. So we use 3 different terms. We use coach, instructor, and teacher. A coach is somebody who can help anybody that has kind of a natural skill or understanding, help them get better. Okay? They're not really good at helping people who don't understand the activity or the game already. You see this in the sports world, right? They tend to ignore those who don't really get it, or they're not self-learners, that kind of thing. Those people end up, sitting the bench or just weeding away, right? And then instructors are those who just convey data, right? Here's this kata, step by step by step. Here's this thing, whatever. And then teachers, and again, you can use whatever term you want, but teachers are able to take somebody, regardless of that person's starting point, and help them get to a point where they are the best that they can be. That person may never be at the same level as other people in the dojo, but they're as far as they can be. And that's a cool thing. Right? And I've learned that over the years, being with different types of teachers, instructors, coaches. Right? So, but again, speaking of over the years, right? I've had people over the years tell me that they need to get back to training. Okay. There have been points in my training career where there has been significant time between when I saw my teacher, when I was actually in my teacher's dojo or at a seminar with my teacher or whatever. I remember one year I was in the military, it's a year and a half. Right? Finally got the time. I mean, military stuff, there was a bunch of shit going on, and I finally was able to make it to this seminar. I was actually in Florida. My teacher at that time was in Ohio. And when he first saw me, the first thing he said to me was, "Oh, hey, I thought you quit." Right? Which was a huge punch because I realized that I didn't stay in touch. So that was on me. Okay. But that's not what I'm talking about. Okay. And I get it. Right. Just like I was just talking about there. Right. Life happens. Work, family, money, stress, all kinds of shit happens. Right. But I'm going to be really honest with you. I never stopped training because I didn't need to be in the dojo to train. Okay. I never stopped training. Not when my wife was pregnant, not when finances were tight, not when I was working jobs that just left me either exhausted or with no time, or like when I was in the military, there was no permission to go. Okay. Why? Because I had a path. I had notebooks full of notes. I had videos when videos finally came out, right? And I had goals. I knew what I was working on, and I never handed that responsibility over to somebody else. Yeah. It wasn't always pretty. It wasn't always perfect. But I stayed in the fight. And if you're serious about this art, about yourself, and about what it means to call yourself a practitioner of Ninjutsu or somebody who wants to be, you'll find a way to keep training too. Again, this week, in Kuden and even in Whiteboard Wednesday, I mentioned a couple of things from Hatsumi Sensei's book, Ninpo, Wisdom for Life. But I've gotten this verbally over the years, and it's in different forms in different books that he has, right? But there's this lesson. Hard times are the perfect time to train. But if I even believe that what 95% of people tell me, they can't train because times are hard. You understand, Sensei? You understand my life? Yeah, you're right. I don't understand what it means to be poor. I don't understand what it means to be abused. I don't understand what it means to be at the whim of an employer, family life. I don't understand any of that. Of course, that's not true. However, right? But hard times are the perfect time to train, right? Because if we only train when it's easy, if we only train when it's convenient, if we only train when we're motivated, then we're not really training for life. Life is messy. There's never a best time for anything, right? Which is why teenagers and 20 somethings and 30 somethings and whatever are pissed off, angry individuals. Because when they were a little kid, they convinced themselves that when they were a grown up, they were going to be able to do anything they wanted. Then they found out that adults had more rules and more things to do. Fuck, if I could just stay a kid, that'd be awesome. Well, there's that, right? So if this is the way we do things, then I'm going to propose an idea that we're just collecting moves in a controlled setting. We're not living to this ideal of transformation and growing toward enlightenment and wisdom and mastery, right? Because the real training is when you're under pressure, when time is tight, when motivation is low, when stress is high, but you show up anyway, because that's when character is forged. And that's the epitome of the nin within Ninjutsu. Right? The whole character nin. I have this in a couple of my programs. The short of it is the character, and a lot of you know this, right? You know the kanji and the breakdown, right? There's this blade over the heart, right? Actually, in old Chinese, it's taught that the blade is actually in the heart. And the reason for the perseverance or the patience is that sometimes, like, you have to wait. You have to hold your own and wait for that opportunity to move. But that doesn't mean, see, this is every one of my kids, every one of my grandchildren, when they're born, has gotten a copy of a book by Dr. Seuss called Oh, the Places You'll Go. I don't give a shit how old you are. I highly recommend reading it. In that book, there is a place, or there is a section called the waiting place. And he just lists off a whole bunch of things, right? That people are waiting for. They're waiting in line. They're waiting to go. They're waiting for something to happen. They're waiting to, right? And it's painted as like the worst place you could be in, right? Even against the Krakens and all these, no. Okay. The patience, the waiting, the persevering, it's not like we get distracted, right? People do this shit when they're waiting for stuff, right? But that's not the thing that you're not working on patience and enduring and persevering. And say, my phone's not on, right? Because I'm with you, right? So that's not working on perseverance. That's not working on patience. That's distracting ourselves and avoiding working on the very thing that is at the heart of what we do. Okay. So mastery isn't about waiting for the right time. It's about training in the time you have. And it's a mindset. It's not a schedule. Okay. So what does mastery really mean? Right? It's an ongoing process. It's commitment to training, even when life is busy. You figure it out. It's going deeper into the so-called basics. And I hate that word because like people call basics, right? Keyhole. Keyhole means fundamental or foundational. It's like the ground, right? The more solid that is, anything that we build on it is going to be solid and secure. It's not going to crumble. The shakier the ground, right? We don't build freaking houses on marshes, in swamps and whatnot, where the ground is constantly shifting, right? What can I tell you? I forgive the ancestors of all of you who live in, on fault lines. Right? To expect that your shit's going to stay up when you've built it in a place where the world or the planet moves. I guess that shows resilience or an intention to be filthy rich so I can keep rebuilding. But now there's that everybody's pissed off because insurance companies are pulling up stake and moving and not insuring people that are in that position. Well, how long can somebody like print money that they don't print, right? To pay for things that happen to people who stay in the same damn place. Fundamentals, foundational things, keyhole are the things that show up again and again and again and again and again across nearly every technique. They're not things to learn to get over so you can do the cool shit. It is the cool shit, right? It's the subatomic structure that holds everything together. Right? It's a part of everything. Right? Mastery is about asking better questions as your awareness grows, and recognizing that enlightenment is born of questions and the quality of the questions asked, not of answers. Answers are everywhere. We're surrounded by answers all the time, right? But the answer only pops up when we ask a question. And just like the quality of the question produces the quality of the answer, vagueness begets vagueness, right? So if, and this is something from Shiroshi Malmstrom, since this one's pretty much in honor of him, we'll just use this, right? He stood in the class one time to make this point, and he said, he was talking about this very thing, right? And he said, silver. Silver. I mean, you get it, right? Silver. Of course, everybody's looking around like, right? No, come on, man. It's silver, right? You get it. Silver. The answer is silver. No. What's the question? If the question is, what color was that sports car that just zipped by here and is an accident waiting to happen? And somebody says silver, now it makes fucking sense. But to be collecting answers without asking questions, or by asking vague questions, right? It's a whole bunch of cars driving by outside, right? What color is that car? Which car? Huh? Could have been a couple that went by that are gray that could be perceived as silver, whatever, right? Okay. It's not the same, right? Here's a little bit of Japanese wisdom. In traditional arts, we say shuhari, right? A lot of you guys know this, right? Shuhari, right? So, without diving into it deeply, because that's a whole other lesson, right? Basically, what we're doing is a process of follow the forms, and then we break the forms, and then we become the form. That doesn't mean we become robotic and just keep regurgitating the thing over and over again. It means we transcend the form because the lessons carried by the form. The form is like a delivery truck bringing shit to your house, right? But it stops out in the driveway. There's a whole different mechanism for getting the stuff out of the truck and into the house and positioned the way it's going to fit your lifestyle, right? We don't drive the freaking truck through the front door, park it in the living room. We go, hey, your living room furniture's here. And then we climb in and out of the truck all day long so we can sit on the couch. But that's how a lot of people treat their martial arts training. Okay. So it's follow the forms, break the forms, become the forms. But most never even finish the first step. Because you know what? Practicing the same form over and over again, that's boring, sensei. Well, if it's boring, then somebody's not paying attention. They're assuming that the moves are the lessons. The kata is the lesson. Kata is not the lesson. The kata points to where the lesson needs to start. But the job of looking deeply into the lesson is to figure out what the hell's on the truck, right? And how it gets used. Okay. And when we figure out how this anchors into our lives, right? How it makes sense, right? Mastery isn't about a belt, right? It's about becoming the kind of person who finishes what they start, who sharpens themselves through practice, not just talk. It's the whole process causes us to not only learn this stuff, because that's all it is until we can apply it. It causes us to think differently, look at things differently, see things differently, and lessons end up getting used in every other aspect of our lives. Right? So who's this really for? Because remember, at the very beginning, I said this wasn't for everybody. Okay? And I haven't looked at my screen. I'm looking at my notes to see how many people actually like stuck with this. Okay. Who's this for? So this whole reasoning, there is this drive within me that I need to make a shift. I need to make a change. Okay. Um, One, I am, like I said, I'm tired of chasing the maybes, but there is so much more that I need to do, and so much more that I need to do to grow and to accomplish before I leave this mortal coil. Right? Most of you know that a couple months ago I turned 62, which means I don't have the same amount of time left. And so a change has to be made. And that's why I'm doing something different this spring. Spring tends to be a rebirth kind of time. So what I'm going to be doing is doing a whole lot more not the same shit. Right? I am putting more and more people in place to cover lower level classes, covering the redundancy things because they need that for their training at this stage. But I need to dive more into certain principles and concepts that are they're not keyhone, but they're not the keyhone the way most people get them presented, and then they hold on to them like they're sacred. All right. So what I'm doing is I'm inviting those who are ready for more. They're ready to go beyond casual interest. They're ready to go beyond YouTube, beyond dabbling, beyond maybe someday I want to be. Right? This is about structured, live, feedback driven training and serious growth. I'm going to be hard on myself, and I'm always harder on myself than I am on anybody else. But I'm not going to stand for the excuses and the reasons. See, the reason I said reasons is because people disguise excuses as reasons. Okay. So I have 3 programs in place, right? And some of you guys are in those programs. So while this is not about you, it's for you, right? And anybody that wants to join us. Okay. I have a 3-tiered program kind of system. Very, very quickly. This is not, if you want to sign up, great. This is not a, hey, sign up kind of thing. Cause I'm hoping that most will already know that they're not the right fit. Okay. But we have a Ninpo masterclass. This is for people that are either returning or whatever. And so it's just an open class, Tuesdays, Fridays, 6 p.m. And it starts at the intermediate levels, intermediate advanced, and goes up from there. Right. But this is actually Zoom classes during my black belt Shinobi Kai master's level programs. And so this is for those ready to finally do something, right? So instead of just allowing for the dabbling, because I got a bunch of people that dabble with those things, right? We do the whiteboard Wednesday, and then we do the Friday master class as a springboarding kind of thing. That was put in place so people could check it out, see if we would be a good fit, if I'm somebody they want to learn from and whatnot. And then what we offer them is a way to double their training and get more out of it and not be like just kind of, I don't know, dabbling, right? Get the video. Most of these people don't even show up for class. They don't even show up for the thing. And I get it. A lot don't show up because the time zone doesn't match and whatnot. Those people get, they get a pass. But they get the recording, they download the recording, and then they wait for the next one, right? But right? So what I've done with this one is I created a jumpstart program because the purpose of this program is to get somebody started, but they need something that kind of fits in, or they're not really looking for rank, and they're they're or they're intermediate, or they're advanced, or they're working with somebody else, and that's how they're getting their rank, and they want to augment things, right? So it's for somebody who's finally ready to begin, but they're not looking for a lot of structure because the class topics are always different. I'm talking to master level students, right? So we got that one. I've got so that's Ninpo Masterclass. We've got Ninpo Mastery, which is for those ready to commit fully to at least a year, right, of structured advancement. So these people get access to the curriculum, and they can work through, and they can apply for rank. There's coaching calls and all kinds of things, right? But anyway, and then I've got this elite level that I've got, of course, way fewer students in, but these are for people who want mentorship. These are people who want more feedback, personal evolution at the highest level. They want to learn this stuff the way I learned it, not just the techniques that I learned, not just the variations that I learned, not just the little philosophical quotes that I learned, the way I learned. And when I learned, there were so many people coming to this art, teachers didn't have to be nice to keep you. Okay. So, but see, that's also why I choose teachers, because I don't want to be patted on the head. I want to be told no when I'm doing something that's wrong. And I want to get a boot in the ass if I'm really screwing things up and I need a major adjustment. But those are the things that make most people that we've been talking about leave, right? Anyway, again, I know I've sounded a little bit on the negative side or whatever, but if what I'm saying tonight resonates with you, right? If you're serious, not perfect, but serious, right? I want to help you train. And if you know that you're done dabbling, right? If you want to be a part of something that demands more from you and gives you more in return, then this is your moment, right? I've opened up enrollment for these 3 levels. It's serious training, right? Whether you're ready to start, recommit, or go deep into mentorship, it's all laid out. So I will, in just a minute, I'll post the link to the page so you can at least look at it. But again, just I'll post it so you can see what's going on. Then after this is over, I'll get to as many of the platforms as I can and post something in comments so that it's there, right? And if you're not sure where you fit, just message me, right? I'll help you find your entry point, or we'll figure out really quickly that you and I are or are not a good fit, right? You can DM me, you can email, whatever, right? And usually, depending on the quality of the questions that I get, because if the questions I get are, how much is it? And I understand everybody has their finances. It's not usually the question that one who is serious about progressing asks a mentor. No, it's not one that I ask any of mine. Ever. Usually it's, what do I need to do? Right? If I ask you to be my teacher, right, what are your expectations? That comes way before how much do things cost? Right? And if that really is the question, it's kind of like buying a car. If you have to ask, then you probably can't afford the insurance, the gas, and the upkeep. You know that old saying, if you have to ask, you can't afford it. Okay. But I still appreciate that, because I've had students that have asked, could not afford it at the time. I did not fold. And 6 months, 3 months, a year later, they came back, ready to sign up. Oh, wow. Things change? Oh, yeah. Yeah. I knew I wanted to train. And so I went and figured it out. And not only can I train now, but yeah, my whole life is different. Okay. And they thank me for not bending over backwards and raping myself so that they could get something for nothing. Anyway, either way, train's moving forward. I'd love to see you on it if right, you're looking for a challenge. Okay. Again, most people quit too soon. But if you're still listening, you're probably not one of them, because I've droned on for an hour here. Right? You're ready to train, you're ready to grow, and I'm here to help you do exactly that, as long as you show up with intention. Right? So let's do this. I'm going to check chat here. I just need to change screens, jump over, see if there are any questions, comments. I'll skip over the flaming bullshit that can sometimes come in, because just like other people ain't got time for anything that's tough or uncomfortable, I ain't got time for listening to bullshit. So what do we have here? Let's see. That was at 8, so I guess we'll just start there. So let's see. I've got that. Jared's on. Jared's been one of my students. Let's see. Victor's on. Good evening. Good evening. Why? Question mark. Morning, guys. Is this like 2 days earlier? Oh, yeah. No, not 2 days earlier. This isn't Kuden. Okay. I was wondering the same thing. I'm 62 as well and just started yoga. Time flies for each of us. Yeah, but you know what? You're going to be dragging me kicking and screaming into the grave. Once I know the moment's there, then I'll go peacefully. But you will never hear me make the use the cliche statements about being old or whatever. Are there certain things I have issues with now because of arthritis or because of scars or because of other damage? Yeah, of course. Okay. But as one of my teachers, matter of fact, it was Shiroshi Malmstrom. He used to always say, I know how you live. I know with what we do, it's not the age, it's the mileage. Okay? And I'd rather go down a wreck because of mileage than go down a wreck because I got parked in the yard and left unattended and undriven for, a year or 5 or 2 decades or whatever. Okay. So anyway, I don't see any questions. Anybody? You know what? Let me grab that link. I was going to pop it in there. I apologize. So, notice I don't have James tonight, which should have been everybody's first clue as to why, or that it wasn't Kuden. Greg from Australia. That's your handle, Greg. Why? Nice. All right. That tells me a little bit more about your can't post messages to some channels. All right. That's all right. I'll get around to the channels and post things if I need to. Anyway, so cool beans. All right. I don't see any questions. I don't want this to drag on a whole lot. I only planned on about 45 minutes, so I didn't go that far over. But we'll be on tomorrow night with Kuden, and we'll have a different type of discussion. Right. And I will be on tomorrow morning, actually, as well. I have to get some of these things off my chest, and I need people to understand where the changes are coming from. I need to spend some more time on my stuff. And if you want to go along for the ride, great. But I'm willing to let some folks on and in who are starting, but just know that I don't have time to wait for them to figure it out. I know we all figure things out in our own time. That's not what I mean. I mean, I do not and will not have or make time for the lazy, the procrastinators, the excuse makers, the easily bored, the needy of entertainment, whatever. Right? There are plenty of instructors across this art in today's world that will teach you for practically nothing but they haven't been around for very long, or they're not teaching you anything differently than what everybody else is teaching you. I've been in this art since 1980, and I've trained with the best of the best, and I have the real world experience to back it up. And I don't mean the real world experience of, I've just lived a long time. I also don't mean that I've been in fights or had to defend myself or whatever. What I mean is, well, here's the gist that I give most students. We can break instructors down into 3 types when we're thinking about self-defense, when we're thinking about the stuff that this art can teach. And when I say self-defense, remember, I'm not always talking about physical either, because a lot of us are really, really good at physical skills, but our anger management skills suck, or our relationship skills suck, or our ability to weather any kind of change that puts pressure on us. This stuff is not isolated to just fighting the way most people think about fighting. Okay. So if we think about martial arts instructors, just, I don't care what black belt or what number is behind the black belt. Okay. And this is not demeaning anybody. This is specific to the ability to produce results outside of just doing the moves. Right. You have somebody who learned the lessons, developed the skills. They're very good at what they do, right? They have that black belt, okay? But they have never been in a fight. They may not have been in any kind of life-altering catastrophe, right? Where they would have had to apply their skills, the skills that they're teaching you, right? Or they learned the stuff, but while they have a lot of skills, the depth or breadth of understanding within the skills or within the techniques, not there. You have another instructor, learn the same skills, develop the same skill proficiency. They've been in fights, they've been in stressful situations and whatnot, and they have survived those things. So they can tell you, they may not be able to tell you, how the techniques apply, or they may not be able to tell you how, or whatever about the techniques, right? But they will be able to tell you how you better be training, what you need to be able to prepare for, look for, those kind of things. So there's value, right? But they've never used what they're teaching you firsthand in those situations. So they've experienced with the situations, but use of the techniques in those situations, they don't have that part. And then you have instructors who learned it and have developed it and have actually applied those same skills and techniques in bad situations. Okay. So for all the jackwagons that like to say that Mushadori can't be used in a fight because you'd never be able to whip one of those things on somebody, I must have been hallucinating, because the number of times that I've been able to whip a Mushadori or an Onikudaki or an Omotegyaku or whatever on somebody who was resisting arrest, or one guy attacked my wife and thought he was going to come at me hard on, and ended up in a Sengaku Jime in not even 2 moves. Right? That's a different instructor. Okay? So anyway, that's what I have. Let me see if anybody posts anything here. I just saw, let's see, Jared post something? My screen for some reason. There we go. What time in the morning? I think 10 a.m. 10 a.m. Eastern is my plan at the moment. So that keeps me on my normal teaching schedule. And based on my research, because I'm a ninja and I gather information, that's when most of my folks are actually active online. They kind of got in, got themselves prepared and whatnot, and then they start checking out things online, email or post or whatever, before they have to sink their teeth into the rest of the day. Okay. So I need to meet them where they are. Otherwise, they'll be distracted by who knows what, cat videos or whatever. Probably not. Not not the people I'm looking for. Anyway, all right. So I don't see any questions or whatever. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. I know there's been a bunch on or off, and there's a handful of you that I'm probably singing to the choir. But anyway, if you resonated with any of this, fantastic. But let me just go ahead and close this out by saying that, well, this is the way I close out a lot of emails, right? I wish you well, and I mean this sincerely, right? All of this is always for me, it's to vet out folks that are the dabblers and whatnot, right? But for those of you who are not, and I know who you are, right? I mean, Victor and a bunch of you guys, right? I mean, you're either posting things or you've been to my place. Victor's taught breakout sessions, or I've seen you, in training, and you didn't show up lazy and lackadaisical and like you were watching martial arts on TV. To you guys, right? This is to your, and I mean this well. I mean this from the bottom of my heart, right? If we were toasting, clink, right? What I would say is to your attainment of personal and warrior mastery. Okay. That being said, I'll see you in class or the next time. Have a good night, everybody.